First thing I would like to say is that I'm very disappointed at citizens' disregard for health and safety. This here is marketed as an atomic watch, and yet it comes in a cardboard outer container, and inside there's this tube of cardboard. No lead shielding, nothing to protect the customer. Over here I put a radiation warnings. Alright, I'm only kidding on. The term atomic watch is a little bit misleading because it's not an atomic watch at all. What this watch does is it syncs by a radio signal with an atomic clock. Several of them round the world actually. Here in Europe, in Great Britain, the atomic clock this syncs with is in Germany. Every night at about 2 AM it syncs with the clock, and if it fails to do so it tries again at 4 AM. So in the morning you have a time adjusted to the atomic signal from that clock, keeping the watch absolutely precise at all times. Let's have a look at it. So here we have the watch in all its glory with its radio. Oh, you know I'm only joking. Hang on. Joking aside, this one here is the first atomic syncing watch produced by the company Junghans in 1990. And as you can see, at the 9 o'clock it has quite a large bulge for the radio equipment. Nowadays, however, watches don't have to have any sort of bump on them at all. It's all properly miniaturised, and you get various ones at different price points that are just ordinary slim quartz watches. Here we have the much slimmer and more compactly designed actual watch. This is Citizen's Tsuki Yomi, and this model is model BY 1010-57H. I mention this because it comes in different colourways. There's a blue one, which is a BY 1010-57L, and a red one, which is a BY 1018-55X. There's also a green one, which is a BY 1010-57X. Now, I don't know why the red watch has a different serial number series than the green and the blue, but there you are. Now, this watch is radio controlled. It has a world time function. It has a perpetual calendar, and it's a solar powered watch with a moon phase. And to my understanding, this is marketed as the world's only solar powered, radio controlled moon phase watch. The beauty of this watch, which is in Duratec coated titanium, is that once you set this, you would never have to touch it again. The calendar will adjust for different lengths of month. The moon phase will sync along with the time through the atomic clock, and it really is a set and forget watch. If you choose time zones, you pull the crown out two clicks and then turn it to adjust for the different time zone, or wait until that night, and if it picks up an atomic signal, the watch will oblige by adjusting itself. Some specs. This watch claims 100 meters of water resistance, which in previous videos when I was discussing diving watches is all anyone actually needs. It has a sapphire crystal, a flat sapphire crystal, which has some anti-reflective coating on it, so the dial is always very legible. It has lumed markers and hands, although the moon itself on the moon phase is not lumed, nor are those subdial hands. Now, the watch looks a little bit like a chronograph. It's not a chronograph. What we have is the day of the week on this top subdial, and the moon phase on the bottom subdial, and the 9 o'clock subdial is one of those perhaps not that useful 24-hour dials. Tells you if it's evening or night time. So noon is at the 6 o'clock position, midnight is at the 12 o'clock position. You can work it out from there quite easily. Has a date function at the 4 o'clock, and as I mentioned, that adjusts with the perpetual calendar to always be on the correct date. So again, I'll say it again, this is a set and forget watch. Now the dimensions of the watch. It has a rather large 43mm diameter. I say rather large. At the moment I'm wearing a much smaller watch. But because the watch is slim and light and the end links curved down, the watch actually wears very neatly and not as big as it would sound. Because of the watch's titanium construction, it's only 95 grams when adjusted for my 7 and a little bit inch wrist. To adjust the watch for my wrist, I had to remove 2 links. There is no micro adjustment, but there is an adjustment on the pressed titanium clasp. Of all the parts of the watch, it's actually the clasp that lets it down the most. All the links are solid, including the end links. They're all lightweight titanium. Unfortunately, adjustment is by a pin and collar system. And you have to be really careful, first of all, to use a correct tool to remove the pins, but not to lose the little collars on the pins. A complete pain in the bahookie. This is what bahookie means. The watch's lug width is 22mm. A little inconvenient, but with a larger case diameter like this, it would look a little bit silly with a 20mm bracelet attached. It is only 11.4mm thick, and it is 48.5mm lug to lug. As I mentioned, these taper down and it fits quite neatly on the wrist. Aside from lightness, a feature of titanium that's not often discussed is that it's a very conductive metal. Heat conductive metal. And when you're wearing this, it very quickly assumes your body temperature. So the watch always feels, and this is hard to describe unless you actually have worn one, but a titanium watch always feels in sync with your skin. Very, very comfortable, and that's a comfort quite apart from the lightness of the watch. Very, very pleasant. On the downside, titanium, although it's always marketed as a super strong material, is actually quite a soft metal. Now, ordinary titanium has a Vickers hardness of 150. Stainless steel has a hardness of 200. A sapphire crystal, the crystal of the watch here, has a Vickers hardness of 2300. So as you can imagine, a raw titanium watch would be quite easily scratched. Citizen treat the surface of their titanium watches with a finish called Duratect, and they market this as super titanium. Now they claim that the Duratect coating has a Vickers hardness of 1000 to 1200, which is about 5 times as hard as stainless steel. Now you might be forgiven for thinking that that means that the watch is going to be scratch proof. Far from it. I'd like you to have a look at this. On the band there, on the bracelet clasp, there are scratches. And on the polished sections of the middle links, you can see some scuffing there. What I'd say to you, from having quite long experience of Duratect watches, I have this one here for about 10 years, is that they aren't scratch proof. They're about as scratch resistant as a stainless steel watch in normal use. However, it's quite difficult to polish scratches out when they happen. Now, on this watch, there isn't a mark on the case. I've only had it a month. Got it for Christmas Day, actually. But there are some little scratches have appeared already on the bracelet. What I would suggest is that there is a possibility that the treatment is more effective on the watch cases, because this was also the case with my other watch, or that in an area like the watch head, which doesn't get bumped around as much as the bracelet when you're sitting at a desk or whatever, it's a bit more effective in protecting. The finishing is a bit more effective in protecting it. What I would suggest is happening here is that the surface coating is wonderfully hard, but it's sitting on top of quite a soft surface, and it's quite a thin coating. Therefore, scratching is possible, just sort of the mechanical effect of whatever's pressing against the finish, pushing through the hard layer and causing a scratch anyway in the ductile titanium below. This here is my other Citizen Eco Drive in titanium, in super titanium. This one I've been wearing for 10 years, near enough 10 years anyway. Very similar clasp, but the links on this one are actually hollow links, they're actually folded links. As you can see, quite a lot of scratching on there, but nothing at all on the watch head. Can't really explain that, but I'm showing you this to show you that scratches or not, the scratch resistance on the watch does stand up to what you might expect from stainless steel, although it's far from scratch proof. In any event, I'd say that the Citizen's claims for Duratec coating, at least at this price point, may be legally defensible, technically true. However, in practical terms, the watch is not 5 times more scratch resistant than stainless steel in use. So this watch is absolutely beautiful. I'm an amateur astronomer, so I love the moon phase. Obviously, I usually know what the phase of the moon is anyway, because I see it every night when I'm out looking at it with my binoculars as I'm walking my dog. But it's nice to have it on the watch anyway. The other thing that's great about it is not having to worry about date changes or anything like that. This really is a set and forget watch in a genuine way. Now, if the atomic signal doesn't sync, all is not lost. This is still a supremely accurate watch, because Citizen claim that it has an accuracy of plus or minus 15 seconds a month. Now that's not quite as good as saying half a second a day. That's, again, it's probably marketing and very careful wording, but it really does knock the backside out of any certified chronometer. No mechanical watch can reach that level of accuracy, and that is without the constant daily adjustment. Essentially, you're looking at a watch which keeps perfect time all the time. Now, taking a closer look at the watch, we can see that the dial comprises of a printed picture of the moon's surface, with the 3 subdials and the calendar function at the 4 o'clock. There is a minute track round the outside, which is in black in all of the colourways of the watch. In my opinion, this grey colourway is the best. I think I've seen the blue in the flesh and the red one, and I think that it somehow cheapens the watch. This watch costs around £700 here in the UK, so it's not a cheap watch. It's very classy looking in the grey, and the grey being neutral means that the watch looks good on its bracelet, but it's also versatile enough to be worn on leather or silicone straps if you prefer to avoid the micro scratching that the titanium bracelet is picking up. What I would say, however, is that the titanium bracelet is very, very comfortable. And people who don't enjoy wearing steel braceleted watches might well find that this titanium bracelet, which is 22mm at the lug, has a little bit of a taper, but it's barely noticeable. It tapers down to 20mm at the clasp. It's extremely comfortable on the wrist. With that other characteristic of titanium that I was talking about earlier on, where titanium heats very quickly to your body temperature. So the watch feels really, really comfortable on the wrist. And that's apart from its lightness through the titanium. I'll let you have a little look at the watch's lume here. Now, although the lume is not generous, the lume areas are quite small on the dial. The lume is very efficient. It brightens up very, very brightly, and I've got to testify that it remains visible throughout the night. So if, like me, you're in the habit of occasionally wearing your watch to bed, you will find that the lume is adequate to be able to tell the time. However, I would suggest that placing a watch on a nightstand is where you will get the best time signal. I wouldn't really suggest wearing the watch on your wrist overnight if you want to enjoy the synchronization with the atomic clock. The receiver in it, either the receiver in the watch is fairly weak or the signal isn't strong from the atomic clock, and I find it can be quite temperamental as to whether it receives the signal or not in an evening. The recommendation from Citizen is that the watch should remain still for an extended period, orientated correctly for the time signal. And I think basically that's quite good advice. I find that the nightstand beside my bed, it is satisfactory, but I've tried moving it around the house, and I find that some windowsills at some side of the house are very good for it receiving this time signal, and the other side of the house doesn't work at all. So bear that in mind. It all sort of depends on the orientation of your building, how effective the receiving of your time signal will be. But there is a manual override, so you can actually place the watch in an appropriate spot and adjust the time signal manually. Actually set it to receive the time signal manually rather than the automatic one that it does overnight. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the watch. I'm intending to do another video shortly about the functions of the watch. The instructions that come with the watch basically just refer you to a web page where there's a PDF from Citizen on how to operate the movement that's inside the watch. It's actually quite simple. There are only 2 pushers on the watch. There are no setting pins that you have to use a toothpick to engage before you can change things, as on some perpetual calendar watches. The crown of the watch comes out to 2 different positions. You can set the watch manually. You don't have to use the advanced technology here, but I mean, it's really cool to have it, let's face it. This is a geeky, gadgety watch. Anyway, till the next time, bye for now.